No. How are you? I would love to do that. That'd be a great idea. Well tonight? Good. Good to see you. It has been. I've never been. I didn't recognize you for a second, and I said, that's perfect. I'm available either morning. Okay. So I'm good. I am very pleased to say your hair's got turned gray, and I said, you get older, your hair turns gray. At least I still have it.
Especially in your line of work, I bet.
Being married for 37 years. Oh, I said that out loud? I'm just kidding. She's not here. This is tape, though, isn't it?
Is that? Does anyone have? It's your Wayne. It's your. Are we accurate?
Let's see.
Oh, we're there.
We're there.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the regularly scheduled July meeting of the Madison County Board of County Commissioners. I would like to remind everyone to please turn off or silence your electronic devices. Okay? At this time, let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will now have a moment of silence. Thank you. We now have before us the printed agenda, and we do need to make a couple of changes to the agenda. Under 7, we need to add 7B, which is a budget amendment number 18. Under 8, we need to add 8F and 8G. 8G will be the school system request for 4042 funds, and F will be the request. We will set a public hearing for the road name change from Kenpack Lane to Printpack Lane. Okay? With those noted changes to the agenda, do we have a motion to approve the amended agenda?
So move that we approve the agenda with the changes stated.
We have a motion to approve the amended agenda. Do we have a second? And a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. The agenda is now set. You have before you the minutes.
Yes, sir.
Are there any corrections, additions to the minutes as presented?
Mr. Chairman, I'll point you all to one formatting change on the June 21st minutes. You've got a revised copy in front of you that has all the same information, but the budget ordinance is actually contained in the minutes instead of as an attachment.
All right, so noted. Any further discussion?
No, sir.
All those in favor of approving the minutes, please raise your right hand. Any opposed?
Just to
Minutes are
clarify,
approved.
Mr. Chair, that's as amended.
As amended, yes, sir. Thank you. All right. Next item on the agenda is John Caldwell. John? And again, I would like to, do we have a mic over there? We don't have one.
Yeah, I think it's.
Okay, it's laying down? Okay. Yeah. Please make sure to speak into the mic, otherwise it does not carry on the internet.
This is a little bit of extra information there. We got that for you here.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And thank you for hearing me out here tonight. If you need any more extra information than what I've already gave you to make a decision, I have two of my associates here with me. They're a little bit better at public speaking than I am. I probably don't see 12 people a week where I live. But I'll turn it over to them if you'd like to have some more information.
What is the chance that someone's dog or animal, pet or whatever would get in one of these traps?
Not very much, sir. Not very much. Most of what we do takes place on larger farms where dogs are discouraged anyway because of the livestock.
So from reading the information previously provided, even, well, not, I guess it's probably not even proper term to say even. If fox trapping becomes permitted in the state of, or in Madison County, I think it's clear, or it needs to be clear for everyone involved, I guess, that the trapper is not allowed to just randomly go trap
Oh,
places.
no, sir. We have one of the most strenuous regulations in the state govern this. And we're also very much involved in trapper education, trapper training. We do classes all over North Carolina every year. We're one of the most regulated outdoor sports that there is. And no one can just pick up a trap and set it and trap. You have to have license, and we're working very, very hard on being a requirement like the hunter education requirement. They have that passed through Riley where you'll have to have that certificate before you buy a trap license.
Okay, this license, is it through the North Carolina Wildlife Resource Commission?
Yes, sir.
And is it a year-round license or is it
No,
seasonal?
sir. We have very specific seasons. The only people that can do anything year-round is animal damage control agents. And they're licensed through Riley, through the wildlife. And you have to go to a class. I've spent hundreds of dollars on education and classes to get mine. It's an extremely difficult process to get a license for that.
So when you're trapping, do you have to call it in like killing a deer? Do they keep numbers on trapping?
No, sir. Most things don't have a limit because, as a lot of us know, people don't hunt like they used to. And some of these animals have actually became nuisances. You can lose one calf to a coyote, cost you $500 at least. But no, we have to have license. But what we do, we're at the same place every day. If the game warden wants us, he knows where to find us. You know, he just pull up there, the truck's sitting there, and they come to the house pretty often.
So now, do you have to get a permit, or how do you hunt them now legally?
If you're outside of the regular trapping or hunting season, you have to have a permit to actually go in and remove damaging wildlife. And some things you can't get a permit for. Bear, turkey, you can a deer, but it's an extremely hard thing to do.
On the coyotes, though, that's pretty much open season all the time?
For trapping, it's only November through the last day of March. For hunting them, year-round. That's for hunting them with a gun.
Okay.
And another thing about this box law we have in this county, you can't even hunt foxes with a gun.
Mhm.
And if you were using a dog to chase them, the dog's not supposed to chase a red fox, it's only supposed to chase a gray fox.
Do the
How
dogs
train-
know that?
How do you train a dog to do that?
So so obviously there's no way to teach a dog the
No,
difference.
sir.
Okay, so, and at that point then, I guess,
We don't want this just for ourselves, we want this for all the sportsmen. Deer hunters, people running them with dogs, predator hunters, everybody. We want to be able to manage and control this resource.
and this, I assume falls under the constitutional amendment that was passed in the last election, for the
You don't-
right to
you
hunt
don't
and
get- You
fish.
don't get no more traditional than fox hunting and fox trapping. It don't come no more traditional than that. It's been here for several hundred years. I guess that could be debatable with some people, but that's perhaps the way we see it.
Sure.
What other counties around us?
We have
That's
Yancey, Mitchell, McDowell. We're working on Haywood County. And I just don't know about Buncombe County. We'll see about that one.
Can I ask a simple question? Why, I read the material, so help me God, I've read it 3 times. I've called people and I talked out there, I've never read anything so confusing of these laws and these issues here. And I have really tried with 2 cups of coffee in me to sit down and try to figure out what's going on. I don't understand exactly what they're telling me.
Well, in the late 1970s, this country was full of fox hunters.
Okay?
A lot of us, older people knew them all, and it was kind of like a social thing all across North Carolina. And at that time, I ain't gonna say there was any less foxes than there is now or any more, probably the same number. But they decided they wanted their access to the fox and didn't want nobody else to have it. So every county in North Carolina enacted some kind of a law, and just about every one of them was different. And what we're trying to do is go back to each county and the county commission. We're trying to get it enacted where our laws follows what the state recommends, or what the state does, what's in the actual book that you get for hunting and regulations.
So you're going for consistency from
Yes,
county to
sir.
county
Yes,
is
sir.
what the
We're
ultimate
very
goal
much
is.
like that. Yes, sir.
So,
And it makes it a lot easier on the warden. Instead of having to have a book with 100 different county laws in it, he's got one book with a state law, and he can work from there.
so of the 50 some odd counties that have already approved fox hunting, are they all agreed to the same law, or are they?
Yes, sir, pretty much the same thing. A couple of them, I think, has went with a little bit earlier opening date for the coyotes, because coyotes are such a problem.
Okay.
And a lot of farms lose a lot of money by depredation.
And so, I should know the answer to this question, but I don't. So at what point is that decided?
What, sir?
What your county's specific law is gonna read?
I think you have one in there, a paper that is.
Okay, and what you gave us?
And if it's not in there, I'll have one probably with me every week that I could give you, but it just basically follows what the state has recommended, as a state law.
And I apologize for being a little dense on this, but, I teach law, and I'm trying to go through as it goes, and county commissioners can't pass laws, so what we're doing is.
No, sir, I need your approval.
Okay,
And we've got a representative in Riley that's going to introduce the bill. But you guys have to sign me a letter of intent that I can give to that
Okay.
representative. And then it'll go through the entire Senate and House in Riley.
okay. As you and I talked in the hallway out there, I resent Raleigh not unifying these public hearings and making a decision for all the counties rather than putting it back on us and one's here, this one's here, and all this as far as that.
Yes,
I think
sir.
that is
We have
a
been
mess.
frustrated with this for years, extremely frustrated. And at the present time, we're just not having no luck with doing the whole thing. Believe me, we would rather leave you guys alone and let you deal with running our county finances or whatever and leave this out. We'd rather the state do it themselves.
We are referring to the session law, House Bill 991, that we have a
Yes, sir.
copy of here. Okay,
That was an older bill.
okay,
They'll probably have a new bill number.
okay,
It's already went through the Senate.
okay. But the content is the same. Okay.
John, do your other guys have anything they'd like to add?
You guys got anything you want to add to this?
Thank you, commissioners, for taking the time to entertain this this evening. One thing I'd like to add about this is that,
For the record, state.
I'm sorry,
state
I'm Joe
Yeah,
Miller
please.
with North Carolina Trappers Association. One of the first questions that were asked was about the trapping of foxes. I'd like to point out a fact that when you set a trap for a fox, it's the same trap you're going to set for a coyote. It's the same trap you're going to set for a bobcat. It's the same trap you would set for a raccoon or a possum. So it's basically the same type of set. So to think that foxes are not being trapped, really, they are, okay? The difference is that now when you trap one, you have to release it. So they're being trapped, but we're having to release them. I pose the question to you is this, because of under legal and ethical reasons, we need to release this animal. It's the law. What if this animal is diseased? What if this animal is causing the neighbors problems? I mean, I'm from Mitchell County. We have some very poor people in Mitchell County. They raise a lot of their own food. They have chickens. This fox be causing that family issue. We really can't deal with it. So, it's really like it's, to say it's not happening would be just a fantasy, really.
Okay. So, for example, someone in Madison County currently,
Yes.
if they have a backyard chicken coop,
Yes.
and they have for lack of a better term, I know it sounds cliche, they have a fox that's raiding the hen house.
All right, and it does
Okay.
happen.
All right. There's nothing legally that person currently can do to stop that fox from killing their chickens. Is that what you're saying?
Not legally, they can't really do anything about it. They could call Dwayne, and he is, I'll introduce Dwayne.
My name's Dwayne Robinson. I'm also an animal damage control agent for the state. And I can write deprivation permits. But the way Orange's law in Madison County is set up, you have to go through a district biologist or wildlife commissions to get them to write a deprivation permit to take care of that troublesome fox. Because by your law, I can't write one at this time, And as Joe was saying, we're not trying, to sugarcoat anything. The fox is a canine. We're setting canine traps, which canines are going to get caught. And like he said, if we catch a diseased fox or that fox that's raiding a chicken house, we've got to turn it loose, regardless. I mean, if there's something wrong with it, if a coyote's come up and mauled it during the night and killed it in our trap, we have to turn it loose. We cannot utilize that resource because, by law, it's illegal. So we're just trying to get the hunters, the trappers, and the other outdoorsmen to enjoy the resources that are out there to offer for us.
Does anybody know the population of foxes roughly?
Not at this time. All the counties that we've had this bill passed in, the fox population has increased. It's not decreased to extinction levels or nothing, but it's maintained or either increased because of healthier animals.
I'd like to point out this study that was done by the North Carolina Wildlife Resource Commission, and it states that there is a sustainable population in all 100 counties in North Carolina.
Is that the fur something biologist that I'm trying to get a hold
Correct.
of?
Colette,
She's the one who was a part
whatever.
of this. Yes.
Okay, because I would be interested in hearing from her directly, and because that's very important to me about the sustainability as far as that. And I got to ask this question so I can at least go home tonight.
Okay.
The traps humane?
Of course.
What does that mean?
Well, it's kind of like putting a collar on your dog, except it's going on their foot.
Okay, and I'm not being a smart aleck. I'm just
No, I want you to ask
asking a question.
Actually, we've got a book called BMP, Best Management Practice. And the European standard for trapping is they don't want to buy our furs unless we're using the BMP method. These have been, traps have been tested for reliability, ease of setness, what damage does it cause to the animals? How much damage does it cause to the animals? And if it went beyond the criterias, then it failed the BMP course and it's no longer a BMP certified trap. And that's what we use. We do not want to cause any unnecessary harm to an animal that, you know, that's like some people are talking about foxes, coons and stuff. They live their entire life. We catch them. Our, like John was saying, our trap laws are regulated the heaviest of any activity in North Carolina. We've got to have permission to be on a piece of property to trap. We've got to have it signed within the last year.
So it's written permission
Written
from the
permission
landowner.
From the landowner. I mean, if we don't have that, we're trespassing. And when you set a trap on somebody else's property without their permission, it's up to the game warden whether he cites you or he cites you and arrests you. I mean, it ain't like a hunter going there and you gotta get off my property. We're that much heavier regulated as a trapper. So, but, I mean, we are just looking to, you know, take our animals that we catch. And the way you want this law wrote up, I don't even know if you can pick up a fox off the side of the road and use it for a resource. I know in McDowell County, we could. If we found a nice fox been hit by a car, we had to lay in there and let it go to waste. We couldn't use it for that. And pretty much the way I'm reading yours is laws, there ain't much different.
So these foxes that are trapped, what ultimately is their fate?
One, we've got a live market here in North Carolina, which is regulated by the Wildlife Commission too. They have to certify pens. As a live market trapper, you cannot sell to an individual unless they have been certified as a live market. Or two, you can harvest it, scan it out and sell it in the fur trade, novelty market, whatever, that way. And to be a licensed pen, you gotta meet a acreage. So many acres inside the pen. The pen's gotta be constructed in a certain way that they can't escape. They gotta have escape routes, get away from the hounds when they're being chased. So it's just, I mean, there's a lot of, you know, criteria that they gotta meet to be licensed.
So they're used essentially to train dogs.
Yes, trained dogs.
But
And basically, like the old timers, you know, we went out here and run the ridges. You know what some of these hounds cost. They don't want it to be running out here and cross 213 up here and get hit by a car like they used to. I mean, there's much traffic out there now that wasn't there back when our grandfathers were out here running their hounds.
With this information that you gave us, I noticed here it says counties with fox hunting seasons with weapons. Then down here it says restrictions on taking red foxes in Cleveland, Haywood, Lincoln, and Madison counties. Now, what you're here for tonight, how does it affect that?
That would be, taking red foxes would be allowed in Madison County then.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because youngsters can only vote for Madison County, unfortunately. You know, I'd like to get everybody together and say, just make it a statewide deal.
So that is the restrictions it's talking about is taking them, period, not,
Yeah.
okay.
Not just trapping them. That right there, that section, there's like 80-some counties in the state that have some type of hunting for foxes. Right now, we've got 51 counties in the state that have got a trapping law of some type on the books for foxes. And in those 51 counties, there's like 23 different sets of laws. And we're just trying to utilize and get all the laws where they're the same. Not like they're talking about having to carry a booklet around with you, figure out what I can do here, what I can do over there.
Is there a limit on how many per day you're allowed?
We're trying to do away with that because like last year I took roughly 6 foxes last year. And that's the first year in McDowell we could actually keep our foxes. And that's not much different than I was doing beforehand.
So that's a season limit.
season limit.
What about a daily limit?
You got some, in there, you've got some counties that do have dailies, and with seasonal counties, limits and so forth, it's hard to, you know, as a trapping association, we're actually the biologists I talk to, you know, they're not in for that, but, you know, it's strictly,
These recommendations are the biologist's recommendations, they're not ours.
So it appears that most counties are a two
Some are.
foxes daily a daily limit, and 10 for the season.
Some are, those are the ones that have the older laws that have been on the books for a lot of years.
Gotcha.
We're trying to get to a point where we can just get enough counties involved in this to where we can just make it one statewide season. To get back to your question, sir, about viability and sustainability, I do want to point out some things that this study shows. In counties where they do have fox trapping seasons, they see an average of a 61% increase in coyote catches as well. So the coyote catches are going up dramatically because of the fox trapping seasons. As a trapper, it's not our job or what we want to do is to eliminate the whole population. You know, that's kind of missing the point here. So that's why the seasons will be only set from November the 1st to the last day of February. And the reason why that is because the young have been raised and they're out of the parents' guidance, and then at the end of February is when they start back to breeding. So we don't want to mess with the population. What we've actually found is that there's two types of ways to control animal population, plant population, whatever you want to look at. You need either preservation, you need conservation. And with preservation, it's basically just let nature take its course. And what generally happens there is the population builds and builds and builds, and it peaks when there's so much populations, there are not enough viable food and natural resources for them. So then disease, hunger, starvation kicks in, and the population plummets. And then it starts all over again. With conservation, which is what we are more about, we're maintaining a healthy population all the way through. So I can tell you at my properties that I have around my house that I trap, for years I never saw rabbits out in my yard. They just never were there. And for 2 years I have trapped coyotes, and for 1 year I've trapped foxes. And what I found is the foxes I catch on my game cameras now look much healthier because there's much more viable food source in the wild for them. And they're less likely coming and getting a hold of my dogs and my cats and livestock that I have on my property. So it makes it actually for a better human-animal interaction because they have what they need in the wild to survive and sustain, and they're not having to come and take resources that I have at my house. So it actually makes a better balance for everything.
I'm trying to think of any other questions I had.
I do have one more point I'd like to point out here. Last year, we had a statewide vote for an amendment to our Constitution to protect the right to hunt and fish. And Madison County had a 59.37% that voted for this amendment. One of the precincts was actually 69.43%. And statewide, we had a 57.13 approval rating of this amendment, which, if you notice, Madison County exceeded the state's average. And this amendment, and I'll read this straight from the website, this amendment would acknowledge the right to hunt, fish, and harvest wildlife, and to use traditional methods to hunt, fish, and harvest wildlife. And what we're just asking you guys to do is let's get Madison's county law in line with our state constitution.
I don't have time to debate that with you as far as the law and the Constitution, because you might be here till Jesus comes
Well, if
back.
you teach law, you'll probably beat me. So.
No, sir, no, I don't win an argument in my house. We're nowhere good. That's not a problem. I'm just saying, I sometimes I think the laws are passed when the laws are already there. I think it's interpretation. I heard what you said. You spoke very articulately. I think the laws were already in place as far as that. But anyhow, I got you. I hear you.
And so, on the wildlife report, if I read correctly, with trapping, you actually catch 7 to 9 times the coyotes
Correct.
You can.
As it is,
versus
as it's hunting.
just strictly hunting coyotes.
Correct. Actually, at a trapping site, if you trap a coyote, actually they leave enough scent there, it actually tends to draw more of them in. So it has a kind of a multiplying effect.
With the coyotes, it
Yes,
does.
yes.
We also get a survey each year we have to fill out and send back in, telling basically how many numbers we caught, what we caught, and then sometimes they want to know the counties and stuff we call them in. On that survey, one of the booklets says there's 36 trappers in Madison County.
36.
36 is what the survey, or what the booklet said. That's licensed, the people that bought a trap and a license. Whether they're a water trapper or land trapper or trapping both. There's 36 individuals in Madison County that have bought that trapping license for last year. So.
Now, forgive my ignorance. Describe to me the difference between a water trapper and a land trapper. What are they?
The species.
Okay.
The water trapper is trapping muskrat, beaver,
I got you.
otter, maybe
Okay.
coon. Land trapper's trapping coon, foxes, such animals as that.
Okay.
All right, just a couple more questions about the proposed legislation. And this is to, now correct me if I'm wrong, this is to primarily standardize in the state of North Carolina all of these various different county regulations
Yes.
that you have detailed in your
Yes, sir.
material that range all the way from Madison to Mecklenburg, okay? And that we are not actually passing anything tonight. That's a General
You're just
Assembly.
basically agreeing, well, let you,
What we need from you guys is to, we need a letter of intent to the state, Fresno and to Heiss, stating that you are okay with this amendment, or with this law.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And then what they will do is then with your approval, then they are going to then put a bill forth with multiple counties as counties come about and add it to them. And then they run that through the House and Senate at the General Assembly, and then it comes along.
Okay. And one other question, this has been endorsed by the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission,
Yes.
the actual legislation, the previous one.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, that's my question. Okay. Gentlemen? Thank you,
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, discussion. Gentlemen, what is the will of the commission?
Well, I'm not a hunter, first of all. But I see their point, I see the need for this, more so for the coyotes than I do anything. Because we have farmers here that, like I say, have cattle, newborn cattle and cattle themselves, and it affects the farmer's livelihood. And therefore, I think that's one issue that we should look at when it comes to this also.
Okay.
That's what I've run into, is the farmers calling last past month, when we heard about this, was one lost some sheep, one lost a calf, so there's, that was their concern.
They're very upset.
Yeah.
Well, the thing that I hear most frequently about it is that there's really nobody, there's really no recourse for somebody who is having a nuisance issue in regards to the foxes, so.
Great.
I am, I would trust John with my car keys or anything else. I'm not sure that I would have the same trust for everybody else doing that, and that's not for me to decide what is right and what is wrong as far as that. I'm not gonna feel comfortable till I talk to that biologist myself. It's not that I didn't speak articulately. I need to hear it in my own ears, do my own research as far as that. The coyotes, I have no argument whatsoever. I've seen the damage. I've seen it. But just from my own simple mind, I've got to call in and email to her. So for me, that doesn't mean you stop with me, but that's where I'm at. That's where my car's parked.
Table for this,
All right.
discussion.
What is now everybody else, and it's my job to encourage everyone else. I've been a member of the National Rifle Association since I was given a lifetime membership when I was 8 years old. Birthday present. Yep, 8 years old. But at the same time, all of this is an act of responsibility, okay? Truly appreciate your hard work and determination to make sure that this was given a fair hearing, and that is what we are about tonight. There are two sides here, okay? And both are maybe even more than two sides. And there's a lot of good points on both. But it is a real issue where we do not have standardization across the state of North Carolina. And I happen to be a person that believes that government ought to be a government of less. I tend to be more of a libertarian. And I see a couple of smiles in the room from people who know me and know that. But at the same time, responsible law is responsible law. And what we currently have in the state of North Carolina is a hodgepodge, which is really not in anybody's best interest, period. But now, with that said, what is the will of the commission? And I believe Vice Chairman Brigman may have a suggestion.
Well, with Commissioner Goforth's request that he talk with her on that item, and I feel like maybe we should table it until he does so, and then discuss it again as a board after he finds out what his findings may be.
Okay. Would you make that as a motion?
Yes, I will. I will make the motion that we table it until the information is received.
All right, we have a motion before us. Do we have a second?
Well, I'm gonna second my own thing. I feel like a second.
We have a motion and a second.
I'm trying to help you here.
Pardon my sore throat. Any discussion?
Well,
My brother.
Any discussion?
And what, Mr. Chair, forgive me for having a momentary lapse, maybe I should consult with county attorney. What would be the, at what point is the appropriate, I guess I would like to make a motion that we move forward with the resolution.
Okay. The first motion
Can't do
being,
that right now.
Okay, that's
Motion
what I'm
is
asking.
standing.
There's already a motion on the table.
yeah.
Okay, that's
the
what I
first
thought, but I
motion-
wanted to be sure. I
Yeah.
figured I'd try.
The first motion being a motion of standing, which is on the table. And that motion is to table the discussion until Commissioner Goforth has an opportunity to satisfy the questions that he has asked and have in the pipeline to be answered. If I understand that correctly, please correct
That
me,
is
gentlemen.
correct.
And my further discussion is I have 30 days to do this. If I can't do it in 30 days, then I'm
So it would return to the next session.
yes.
Okay,
Yes.
without, so it
And
would.
for a decision.
Okay, for decision. Any further clarification on that? Okay.
No, I mean, because,
All
I
right.
mean, he's been coming for a year and a half. I mean, I want to satisfy my mind. That's it.
Are we all clear on the motion?
Am I-
All right, all those in favor of that motion, please raise your right hand. Any opposed? The motion carries 4-1. It will be tabled until the next meeting. All right, next on the agenda is Jan Lounsbury. Jan?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'd just like to give you a report of the Senior Tar Heel Legislative meeting that I attended in Raleigh on June the 26th and 27th. There were 64 delegates from 64 counties, 28 alternates, and 20 guests at this meeting, so we had a little over 100 people. There were several speakers, and I could like to just give you some highlights of each of those, if I may. The first was Joyce Massey Smith, the Director of the Division of Aging and Adult Services, and she announced the Department of Health and Human Services is going to be moving from Raleigh to Granville County. The date for that was not set,
Pulling
but it
people out of
should
Raleigh.
be soon. She also addressed some budget issues, and we're still waiting for the budget to be approved, I understand, so nothing was definite. But one that she talked about was the Home and Community Care Block Grant. And there's hope for a $2.2 million increase in that for 2019 and a $1.3 million in 2020 of recurring funds. But that's proposed, it's not definite yet. But that Home and Community Block Grant, Care Grant, covers some vital things for Madison County as well as other counties. And some of those are senior centers, the home delivered meals, as well as the mill site meals, the in-home personal care aides, and currently, it's my understanding in Madison County, we have a waiting list of 46 people for that in-home care aide
There's a list.
position, and transportation services, home modifications, repairs, and respite services for family of caregivers. So those are all important services that the county could really use the funds for. And they're also looking for transfer of some federal funds into the adult protective services. And as we're an aging state or nation, the requirement of adult protective services is proposed to increase over time as we all become older citizens. So she also said the opioid epidemic is being addressed, and the prescription rate for opioids has decreased by 24%. So that was good news. It's going down. The state aging plan has been written it's a 4-year plan to address aging in North Carolina. It covers 2019 to 2023 and will be published when funding is approved. And it's also going to be online at some point. The goals of that are to address safety and protection for seniors, and address how to lead healthy, active lives, and help communities understand what resources are available for seniors, as well as recognizing diversity within our communities. Another speaker was Bill Lamb, who is with the Friends of Residents of Long-Term Care. That is a volunteer citizens advocacy group, and as with the increase in aging population, it's going to result in increased demands for services and also result in increased demand for long-term care facilities. The functions of the Friends of Long-Term Care is to support families and residents of long-term care facilities and provide information regarding how to evaluate a facility. So if you have a family member that you have to find a facility for, they're a group that you can contact to find out about that facility. They also advocate for increasing the personal needs allowance in nursing homes and assisted living, and advocating for increased staffing per patient, just as the Senior Tar Heels have been also proposing. Another speaker was Mary Ann Salmon, who's from the Governor's Advisory Council, And she discussed their mission to study issues and make recommendations that influence public policymakers to improve quality of life for North Carolina seniors. She does site visits to senior centers and works with the certification and accreditation process in that. And she stressed how important senior centers are because they're a major resource for successful aging. They prevent isolation and encourage engagement of our seniors because it gets them out of their homes, gives them a place to go to socialize with their peers. Another presenter was Mr. Ed Rosenberg, and he gave reflections of a retiring gerontologist. And he spoke about access of resources and addressed issues of aging. And the senior population is increasing in North Carolina, including Madison County. And one of the quotes he stated was, "Denial is not just a river in Egypt." So, if you can grasp that one. Misty Pykar is an attorney from the Division of Aging and Adult Services. She is a legal services developer. She addressed estate planning and documents we all need to have in our papers at home, or let someone around close to you know where they are. And those would be a general power of attorney, a durable power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney, a living will, your HIPAA release, and a do not resuscitate order if that is what your wishes are. Karen Brinson Bell, the Executive Director of the North Carolina Board of Elections, addressed issues or items that they work with, and one is voter accessibility, such as special needs availability during elections. We have curbside voting, and people can come out and assist you with helping you, getting your ballot processed. Absentee policy by mail, voting by mail, provisional ballots, and voter ID. For 2019, the new voter ID requirement is not going to be required. It's not a requirement for 2019. For 2020, a photo ID will be required, and they are going to be doing mailing. There are 2 mailings to come out regarding that for guidance for everyone, as well as they're doing county trainings on this as well. She also stated that no federal funding is available for voting machines, and counties have to purchase their own. Right? And so, the next regional council meeting on aging, Madison County is the host for that, and that happens to be July the 11th, this coming Thursday. And that will be Madison, Buncombe, Henderson, and Transylvania counties, and the Marsville Retirement Center is hosting that meeting for us.
What time does that begin, Jan?
10 till noon.
10 to noon.
And October will be the next Senior Tar Heel legislative meeting.
Question. Senior citizens who no longer drive and who live alone, but who have had lifelong histories of voting. Okay? Is there any, now the mailings, I understand, okay? But we've got a lot of people, Madison County is not an exception, where we have people who, are there any things you're aware of in the works, organized communities, anything that would reach out to that pool of people who don't have a way normally to, get back and forth to get a photo ID, and as you say, it's going to be required by the next presidential election?
They're going to, the county will be providing that ID or providing that photo at some point.
Yeah,
That was my understanding.
Forrest?
The awareness issue is different, but the county, first of all, a current driver's license with the correct address
Is sufficient.
is sufficient.
Yeah,
If you don't have that, or if you don't want to walk across the parking lot and stand in line like me, you can go to the Board of Elections right now and get a voter ID card at no charge.
Okay.
But we're talking, we discussed this a little bit at our last department head meeting. They're hosting an event sometime in early August, I think, for Madison County to talk about outreach. And we're gonna look at ways that we can be helpful in that, but it's just like anything else, there will probably be people who aren't aware of it.
Yeah, yeah.
But,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, cool. And thank you and your
You're welcome.
fellow folks that take your time and effort and attend these meetings. By the way, if you hear of any other agency that the General Assembly is thinking about moving to a county outside of Wake County, we all need to put a word in, since the General Assembly is dispersing state government all over the state. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. Connie Harris. Good evening.
I'm here with a recommendation from the Social Services Board for the Special County Attorney for Social Services Matters. The Special County Attorney for Social Services Matters represents the department in matters of child protective services, foster care, adoptions, adult protective services, and does appellate work as needed. The Madison County Social Services Board has voted unanimously to recommend that the Madison County Board of Commissioners vote to approve Jamie Stokes as the Special County Attorney for Social Services Matter in this upcoming fiscal year.
All right. Thank you, Connie. Is there any discussion or questions of Connie? The chair will move that we approve the recommendation of the Madison County Board of Social Services to employ Jamie Stokes in the capacity of attorney for social services matters.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Connie. Brooke. Good evening.
Hello. I'm here tonight to ask for you all to authorize the county manager to sign the contract between the county and our health insurance broker, which is Insurance Services of Asheville. We've had them since the beginning of 2018. It's been a pleasure to work with them. They've come in and everything that I've said I needed help with or we needed to improve, they have set to work and gone about doing that for us. So they have been worth their weight in gold. Our county attorney's already reviewed it. It's the same contract from last year, so we're real excited about it.
And this is already budgeted as budgeted. All right. Any questions with Brooke or any discussion?
Okay. So Brooke, would you clarify for me, please, because there's no dollar figure in the contract, or do they work off commission essentially, or how does it, how are
They charge us per employee.
Oh, that's right, I remember reading that now.
Every time, our invoice has never changed.
Yeah.
I get the same invoice every month. It's the same bill.
Well, I remember reading the contract now, it's $7 or $9 per employee per year, I think is what the price is?
Yeah.
Okay.
$7, I believe.
Okay.
Is that correct, Brooke? Yeah.
And they, like I said, they charge us, it's per enrolled employee, but
Gotcha.
it all kind of averages out, and they've never changed our invoice.
Very good.
Okay. Further questions or discussions?
No. Mr. Chair, I move that we accept the contract as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you, Brooke.
They know, they asked about it.
And I do see in the agreement, it is spelled out right there, so I've just now found it. I overlooked it the
Crystal,
first time.
come on down.
There it is.
It's on your game show, Mr. Chair.
Yes, it is. But a very good one. Good evening. And would you please introduce yourself again? Some of the folks in the audience may not know who you are. And
Yes, I'm Crystal Cantey, and I'm the new finance officer for Madison County.
very happy to have you with us.
Thank you. For the June financials, this is actually just a preliminary draft because the numbers will change because we have not received all of the revenues as of the year end. And this is our year end, fiscal year end. So I will present the revised draft next month. We should have, hopefully all of our revenues, or at least we should know the amount that we will get. The unassigned and unrestricted bank balance as of June 30th was $3.6 million. This $3.6 million balance, $2.6 million is for the general fund, $795,000 is for the landfill, and $224,000 is for 911. Currently, our general fund expenses exceed our revenues by $464,000, and again, this is because we have not received all of our revenues for the year. Based on the projected revenues outstanding, we anticipate that our revenues will exceed our expenses for the year. The expenses for the landfill exceed the revenues by $82,000. We have budgeted $180,000 to from fund balance, so it's we will meet budget. And 911 has a gain of $39,400 for the year.
Okay.
And then there's also the AP checklist.
Chris, are there any areas that concern you right now, since it's the end of our fiscal year?
No, I think we're in good standing, and
Okay.
we looked again today, and
And you're
yeah.
confident on those conclusions? We're on the landfill and the 911 and the others, we're confident those revenues are gonna come?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any questions, gentlemen?
No.
So the budget amendment, this is because we have received a few more revenues that we didn't know about for 19,
Awesome.
and then also some expenses.
No.
For 911, we're decreasing our revenues and expenses. There are a few lines like the capital outlay and the PSAP that we did not use, so we decreased those and decreased the revenues.
Public safety agent.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
And these total to general fund 35,464, and for 911 18,500.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Are there any questions relative to Budget Amendment 18? The chair will move that we approve Budget Amendment 18 as presented by our finance officer.
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All right. Thank you. All right, Forrest.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Couple of items, talked about voter ID earlier. I will tell you that on Friday, unrelated to next door, building permits, online applications are now available. We've had downloadable forms
Good.
for some time, but you can actually go on there for kind of a soft launch now, and then we'll promote it more later, but you can actually fill out the form online. It'll go directly into
Good.
what our inspectors need, and it will eventually go to tablets they're using. It should really expedite things for everyone, so it's really good step for the county to be going in. The state budget was mentioned, several things going on with that. It's going to be a issue coming to compromise with the House and Senate. Agreed on their budget, sent to the governor. The governor has predicted, vetoed that. Their override is figured out, or until there are changes to the budget, there's going to be a back and forth negotiation that may take some time to work with. Biggest disagreements are over Medicaid expansion, implementation of previously approved tax cuts that were scheduled to go into place this year, and the way to pay for public school and community college construction. So the governor and the House initially had supported doing a bond for that, and then the Senate wanted to do a pay-as-you-go model. So if a bond were on the ballot and passed, Madison County would get $10 million for school construction. As it stands now, $10 million is promised in the budget, but only the first couple of years is funded. They say we'll fund the rest later. So it's kind of a disagreement about how they go about that. Medicaid is the big piece. Impacts people in the county. Does cost money to do that, but would definitely impact some services here in the county as well that are not able to be provided for some people currently. The current budget, as it's written, the legislative budget includes a couple of specific items for Madison County, including funds for a new Forest Service building. This is something that goes back at least 10 years that had been kind of in the works before the recession on county land. Now we've got to figure out what county land will be available if this comes out, but that's one of the better problems to have. So we will work on that, and it could potentially be something we would talk to them about potentially have multiple uses with, if it fits with other needs that we have. There are funds there to reimburse the county for the purchase of new voting equipment, if that budget went through. That's good. That was specifically Madison County listed for that, so that would be good for the county. There's also a special provision in the budget that requires the reopening of our driver's license office 5 days a week by September.
Yes.
And while that has not passed, they're taking it seriously, because last week they called Donnie in a hurry to get this lease figured out, because they said there's something in the budget that says we've got to get this done. So that is good that our legislators have done those specific things for Madison County. There are a lot of things that impact the county, good and bad, but one very good potential benefit is rural broadband funding that the legislature first funded last year. They funded $10 million in rural internet connectivity funding, which is a drop in the bucket for what you need in the state. But it was a good start, and they limited it to only Tier 1 counties, which are the most economically distressed, which does make sense. This year, they have proposed $15 million in both years of the biennium, and it would be recurring. Last year's was non-recurring, so it would be a recurring appropriation, and they have modified the budget language so that it would be open to Tier 2 counties, which we qualify as a Tier 2 county. We're in 3 years of good work, and last year a lot of progress on actually seeing some deployment of broadband funded. We will hopefully be in a good position whenever this comes out to be able to go after some of that. That being said, the budget's complicated. There are things in there that are good and bad, but those are some of the things that specifically impact Madison County. Other than those issues I listed with Medicaid expansion and how you pay for the school stuff, none of the others are in contention that I'm aware of. You have in front of you a resolution requesting from DOT request for road abandonment. You see that the property owners, DOT brought this to us. This is a road that has never been state maintained. It was one of the old county roads when North Carolina took over all of those during the Depression. There's no connection that goes through. All of the affected property owners have signed off. One of the reasons this matters is GPS is sending people up somebody's driveway. So this is a request that you all approve it, we would send it back to DOT and saying that you all approve it.
But we do need to approve that by motion, Forrest.
Yes, sir.
All right, Connie, have you reviewed this?
I wasn't paying attention, Mr. Chairman.
The road abandonment issue. Yeah, for State Road 1563.
So what does this do exactly, Forrest?
It takes it off state maintenance.
It takes this road number 1563 and becomes a private road, is that? what we're looking
Yeah,
at?
it does. There's
Yeah.
actually no road there.
Yeah.
There's a driveway on each end.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you look at the map.
Yeah.
But it would appear on your
Still
GPS.
abandoned. So ordinarily, what you see in one of these is somebody's built a development, and they may take over a road. I know they did that at the end of Bruce Road years ago when they put that development in up there. And homeowner association takes it over or something like that. In this case, you don't even have, the state's not even been maintaining it, but the number shows up. So it's limiting what property owners can do, and it's also GPS is.
The
it'd be a
state,
good place for a road.
the state has a system, it's actually not being given an SR name, so it's
Mhm.
not formally a state road in that they've acquired the appropriate right-of-way. There's certain roadways out there that the state will maintain,
Mhm.
and they will put, and if you call up the state, they will say, we have been maintaining this roadway up to a certain point, and they can tell you exactly how many feet that would be off the public roadway. That's not on the state system. The state is just agreeing to maintain
Maintain it.
that.
Okay.
And if folks don't want them to maintain it, they can ask the state not to, and the state will cease doing it. And that's exactly what this petition is.
And the petition is signed by each of the affected property owners. There's two separate sheets there, so I'm assuming that catches all of them, correct?
I don't know if it catches all. We're relying on DOT for that.
Okay. According to DOT,
According to DOT.
it's everybody, okay.
Okay.
Everybody affected is signed off on it according to DOT.
Okay. Okay. Other discussion?
Pretty clear.
The chair will entertain a motion to approve the abandonment petition.
So moved.
So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the resolution, please raise your right hand. Okay.
All right, next you have a amendment to your home and community care block grant award that you all had approved last month. There was one piece of that that does not involve money coming through the county, but when Land of Sky handles these funds, they rotate a service that goes through a nonprofit. And in this case, they have some services that they're contracting with Pisgah Legal for that has to come through our grant. So you have a request to amend the approved contract for home and community care block grant and authorize the chairman to sign that agreement.
And this is essentially just a pass-through grant, correct? It doesn't cost us any additional county money.
That's right.
Yeah.
But it is helping some of our most vulnerable citizens here. Talking about 10 elderly citizens right there going to be getting some legal advice. So that's an excellent place for it to go.
All right. Chair will entertain a motion.
Make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the amended home care community block grant, please raise your right hand.
And next you have board appointments for, you have a list of the current positions. First you have the Housing Authority Board. You have a current person there who's eligible for a reappointment to a 5-year term. And you have the application from that person. And this is a governing board for the Madison County Housing Authority.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the reappointment of Chris Watson for the Housing Authority Board.
And I will second that. Do we have any further discussion? All those in favor of approving Chris Watson for a reappointment to the Housing Authority Board, please raise your right hand.
Next, you have 3 spots on the Library Board of Trustees. There are actually 1 vacancy due to resignation and 2 that will be vacancies due to a stipulation of bylaws that will not make somebody take a year off before they can be reappointed. And you have a couple of applications at the bottom for your consideration for those positions.
All right.
And we've got, the applications are from all 3 You've got one from Marshall, one from Marshall, one from Hot Springs.
That is correct.
That is correct.
So, I mean, that's a pretty good balance in my book.
It is.
And we've kind of kicked this library trustees thing down the road here a little bit. We need to, I think it's time to move on, and I will move that we appoint Bobby Pyron, and forgive me if I've mispronounced anybody's name here, Bobby Pyron, Pete Dixon, and Rebecca Morris to fill the 3 open slots on the Library Board of Trustees.
I will second that. Is there any further discussion?
One clarification on that, just because we're trying to keep these consistent. The 2 that are gonna be vacant are 3-year terms. The one that had the resignation is through June 2020.
Correct.
So you may wanna just pick one of those to say that it expires in 2020.
All right. Would you like to amend your motion?
Sure, let me glance at this one real quick.
Put him in the field.
Well, I think that's a female actually, but
Oh, okay.
not that that matters, I'm just saying.
I think it was a Mars Hill person
Was
who resigned.
is that the one that makes most sense then?
Yeah.
Okay,
Next.
so with that being the case then, I will amend my motion, in that we replace, the seat, vacated by James Thorson, to be filled until June of 2020 for, Bobby Pyron. And then the other 2 positions be Pete Dixon and Rebecca Morris, for normal length terms.
Okay. And the chair will again second that amended motion.
Okay.
Any further discussion, gentlemen? All those in favor of the amended motion for the Library Board of Trustees, please raise your right hand. Okay.
And last, you have a vacancy on the Parks and Recreation Board that is a term that runs through December of 2020, and you have an application for that board as well.
We do.
Okay, the chair will move that we appoint Regina Reed to fill that term that will go through December 2020.
Second.
And we have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay, excellent.
Next, you have surplus property. You had a back and forth earlier this year about an offer. You received a $500 bid. Y'all counted $1,500. The bidder accepted that, and then $1,500 bid was advertised for counteroffer. No accepts were received. So a vote to either accept or deny that high bid of $1,500.
That's what we counted at, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes.
I move that we accept the offer for this piece of property here just stated.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of accepting the current bid, please raise your right hand. All right.
I don't like it though.
Yeah. Well,
Hey,
it goes back on the tax books.
we don't have to pay any fees or anything.
Next, you have a request which will require you to hold a public hearing, and we're proposing that be at your next regular meeting. If you wish to entertain it, there will be a public hearing to change the name of Kenpack Lane to Grant-Pisgah Lane. And it would set the public hearing for the August 13th, to take place during the August 13th regular meeting.
Okay. The chair will move that we do set that public hearing for the renaming of the road from Kenpack to Grant-Pisgah Lane at the 8/13 regularly scheduled meeting.
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All right.
Next, you have a request from the Board of Education to try to fix the septic tank out there at the septic system out there at the middle school and Brush Creek. It was built just for the middle school. It needs to be expanded so that it can operate the way it needs to and not wreak havoc on everybody around it. They have requested an additional $30,000 in 4042 funds. That would be in addition to what you have already approved for them. There are sufficient 4042 reserves to cover that.
All right. Any discussion, gentlemen?
And just, sorry for the public, 4042 funds, I say all the time, but they cannot be used. This is money that has to be used for school construction, some equipment or debt service.
Right.
It cannot be used for teacher salaries, textbooks, anything else, and it can't be used for anything else outside of education either.
All right.
But the schools
Thank
will
you,
be able to
Forrest.
flush their toilets, so yes, that'd be a good
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
All right.
I move that we approve the 4042 funds for the school.
We have a motion to approve the request for the additional 4042 funds. Do we have a second?
I'll say.
And we have a second. All those in favor, please raise your right hand.
Thank you.
Thank you, Forrest.
Thank you, Forrest. All right, we now have time for public comment, and we have 3 people who have signed up. First is Hart. Come on down. Good evening.
Thank you, board members. I think my question may have probably been sent to Donnie, but I'm going to go ahead and say what I wanted to say, just as unsure of this. My reason for being here is health and public safety. I read in News Record and Sentinel today, thanks to Paul, passing on a transcript from Asheville Citizen-Times concerning the river, some of the tributaries, and abnormally high amount of E. coli currently therein. According to the editorial, Hot Springs suffers the highest levels of contamination downhill from everywhere it stands to read. Barnard was second on the list. The list was composed by a local environmental organization called Mountain Truth. A brief description of E. coli, who doesn't know what it is, it's a microbial bacteria that thrives in feces. So in short, by EPA standards, Hot Springs is experiencing 47 times the safe level of fecal matter and its associated bacteria. Barnard rated second highest, like I said, but it's not even close to Hot Springs. North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, or DEQ, has lower standards, approximately 5 times the EPA, meaning Hot Springs is only 27 times the acceptable amount of E. coli according to the DEQ. DEQ can't issue any advisory, alert, or moratorium because it's caused by natural events or causes, such as abnormally high rainfall. I'm sure everybody's aware of this year, last 2 years really. In my opinion, the outcry from WLOS, Citizen Times, and the News Record points to concerned citizenry attempting to alert people to the severity of this contamination. You know, I grew up in the river. My kids have grown up playing in the river, streams, creeks around here. You know, the day I heard about this, I was at y'all's meeting about the budget last month, and my fiance was watching my little boy over on the island. She turned around for 3 seconds, he was in the river. It was the day I learned about it. We'd already talked about it earlier that day. I came up, and he was wet up to his chest. You know, she said, "I know you're going to kill me." I let him get in the river. We scrubbed him down with hand sanitizer and did what we could. We were both aware of the situation. We were both mindful of him not getting in the river, and it still happened. You know, my concern is, you know, how many people who aren't from here and aren't following local news are unaware of it? You know, is it fair or not to give them an option to stay out of the river? No advisories or alerts issued on the grounds that it's natural events or causes. This is what I was talking about earlier. I may need to just ask Donnie. I'm sure as to whom I should ask this, but is there any way for this board or the Board of Health perhaps to issue an advisory or warning, being that we are at the highest point of this threat level in the western part of the state, you know, to let those who aren't from here coming to use our waterways know that this contamination is there? Now, I asked the board to consider taking some action, or in lieu of action, at least point me in the right directions, who may be able to issue an advisory, as well as figure out a way to do more of a weekly testing than the monthly testing that the DEQ currently does. You know, a lot can happen in a month as far as the river goes. I don't feel like a month is often, I don't feel like it's right to ignore the threat completely, and natural causes or not, people should know about it. You know, sharks swarm.
I hate to cut you off, but we really do need to honor the time.
Point is, natural causes or not, I feel like people ought to know about it, and if I'm at the wrong meeting, somebody go ahead and tell me who I need to talk to, but
yeah,
that's
well,
fine. Thank you.
Well, and let me just, we can't comment on it, but thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Sure, yeah,
All right,
yeah.
thank you. All right, Elaine? Good evening.
Hi, I'm Elaine Robbins, and I had a couple of comments about the Fox issue, one of which was Commissioner Goforth couldn't even understand it with the materials, but we sure as heck had a trouble following what you all were asking for, why you were asking for it, what we might have to say for or against it, because we have nothing. So since we put it off a month, I would ask, is it possible, I know you don't respond to public comment, but I would ask if it's possible to consider putting up the materials that were provided to you all, maybe on the website, so that those of us who are interested could take a look and try and catch up. My next point would be, I'm glad you tabled it, because I thought I had something to say. I was clear from what I did learn today that I was a little confused about what was actually being asked. But if I did have something to say next time, I would sure like to be able to say it before you vote. So I'd ask you to consider on your public comment, this might be a good time to at least split the difference. If there's something where people want to have public comment on something that's on the agenda, it would be very much appreciated if we could speak before you vote instead of after. And then something, I think it was Commissioner Goforth, Commissioner Norris, Gentry said about you like that it's a problem because it's a hodgepodge. I would say that suggests a misconception, because I voted for commissioners who are interested in home rule, and if the state legislature wants everything to be the same, they have surely demonstrated they know how to do that. So I would like the folks here to be able to ask you to consider local concerns, such as those of us who've had dogs who ran before we could afford to put in our invisible fence, which works a lot better, thank you very much. Might have concerns, we don't have a leash law here in Madison County. We've got a lot of people who cannot afford to fence or leash their dogs. And I would have concerns about having a canine trapping for that reason. And also, if you put something up, could you please put up, because y'all were discussing what I thought was a fox trapping, and then I heard a lot of concerns about coyotes. I have different feelings about coyote trapping than fox trapping, as it sounds like a lot of commissioners do, and that was real unclear. And I know there are a lot of people who couldn't be here tonight who are following this issue and might have something to say either by public comment or by email. And if anything could be put up to clarify that in the next month, maybe in the newspaper, that would be real helpful. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Elizabeth. And please introduce yourself for the record.
Ponser. I'm wearing two hats tonight. The first is as a representative from the Downtown Marshall Association, and the 4th of July celebration on the island was a huge success. And next year it falls on a Saturday, so we're going to be bigger and better than ever next year. The second hat that I wear is as a veterinarian. And I have had to treat dogs that have been caught in leg hold traps. I have tried to get dogs out of leg hold traps myself. Please don't laugh at me. This is very, very serious to me, as I've tried to pull animals out of traps. I'm very, very opposed to leg hold traps. And yes, there is a way to protect livestock from predators. It's called livestock guard dogs. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Being no other business scheduled to come before this meeting, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Do we not?
No, we adjourn first.
Okay, I move we adjourn.
All those, do we have a second? All those in, do we have a second? Sure. Second. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. This meeting is adjourned. Yeah, we